I work night shift in a Swedish juvenile detention. Let's talk about that. And of course, the moment I start filming and going outside, it starts snowing. Great timing as ever. As you might understand, I'm not allowed to film at work, so you won't be seeing any video of my actual workplace. I will be talking about it. So you have my permission to put my video on in the background and not watch it, but just listen to it. But with that said, let's get on with the video. Okay, what is juvenile detention? Juvenile detention is a prison for children. Sadly, in the world, not only adults can be criminals, also children can be criminals. And they also need to go to prison. But as you might understand, we don't want to mix adults and children in prison. So there is a separate prison for children, and we call that in English juvenile detention. In Swedish it's just called an ungdomshem, a youth house, a youth home, kind of like that. Here in Sweden, juvenile detention basically means they go to a place where on the inside it actually doesn't look too much like a prison. It looks more like a normal house as much as possible. But a normal house where only the employees have the keys to the outside doors, with reinforced doors, reinforced windows, and we can separate them in their different rooms and all that kind of stuff. Here in Sweden, juvenile detention mostly means that we're trying to reform the children. The idea is that we can still teach them to be part of society without being criminals, and that is the main goal of children here going to juvenile detention in Sweden. When a prison is all about reform and getting them back to society, what does that actually mean? Well, that means it's not considered a punishment. It is not considered a timed sentence. Like you hear all the time that somebody for theft will go to prison for 3 years, somebody for murder will go to prison for 20 years, or that kind of stuff. And for drug use they go to prison for this amount of time. Here it's not about time. It's about reform, which means none of these children will ever be sent to prison with a certain amount of time in mind. People actually get quite mad when that happens. I've seen it happen where somebody says, this child needs to stay with you for a year. And then everybody gets quite angry. Why? Well, within that year, that child would be able to change their ways. And what is the use to keep them locked in if they changed their ways and are a good person? So the goal is to set goals for these children. They get told, you stay here until you start going to school every day, until you lose your drug habit, until you stop being aggressive. So all the children that live there know what they have to do to get out of prison. And this can often be a long process, but it can also be a short process. If they are told, we expect you to go to school every day, to start being less aggressive towards the people around you, and being self-supported in the way that you do your own laundry, keep your room clean, and just start being a normal part of society, then the child knows, oh, those are my goals, that's what I need to work towards if I want to leave this place. And I think that's a lot more honest than just sending somebody to prison for X amount of time, because there are no guarantees with the X amount of time variant. there are no guarantees with sending somebody to prison for 3 years that they will come out a better person. The system we have, there is not a guarantee, but the chances are a lot better that they come out a better person. Sadly, of course, there are children that do not change and even become worse. And that's something you just can't do anything about. That's just the way humans work. We do our best to help them. We try to, unlike other prisons where people are just prison staff, they're just there to keep them locked in and keep them fed. That's not what we are. We are there to help them. We are there to be teachers, friends, parents, and whatever the children need to take steps forward in life. We are there to, as we say in Swedish, behandla dem. We are there to help them get rid of bad habits and create new good ones. Now, what are the ages for the children that go to juvenile detention in Sweden? Anywhere between 12 and 18. Now, this isn't a hard line, this is adjustable. Sometimes we get them younger than 12 and sometimes we get them older than 18. In the 8 years I have there, I've seen the youngest was 14 and the oldest was 24. Now, why would they come in younger or leave later than 12 and 18? They will come in younger if they are just too aggressive or too hard to deal with in normal society. Then they come to us and we're basically their last hope. They can stay longer than 18 depending on their situation. If they, for instance, don't have any parents that can take care of them, or they don't have good parents, parents might also be criminal, that can take care of them, they can stay a bit longer with us, but that is usually just for a short time. We will help them search for a good location where they can stay after they leave our place if they can't go back to their parents. So that's usually, we're just talking about a week or two in that case. But they can stay much longer depending on their mental state. If they are 18 in their body, but they have mental handicaps, which makes them only 12 in the mind, then they can stay for longer. Sadly, lots of these children that come to us have some kind of diagnoses. Yeah, sadly, lots of the children that come to us have some kind of mental diagnoses. I'm not gonna name what kind of diagnoses those are, you can probably imagine yourself. But if a child comes to us that has a mental diagnosis, which means that they're younger in the mind than they actually are in the body, they sometimes need to stay longer. And this hasn't to do with they feel longer in the mind so they need to stay until their mind is 18. No, this still has to do with reform. If they are 12 in the mind and 18 in the body, then they still get to leave if they have reached all their reform goals. But like I said, I've seen children that are 24 years old, but in the mind they're just 15 or 16, and they just don't reach their reform goals. Then they stay with us a bit longer, sadly. I want to add that the ones without mental disabilities that don't reach their reform goals when they're 18 will then move on to an adult prison. This is also a reason why the ones that feel younger in the mind don't move on from us when they're 18, because it would be quite traumatic for them if they feel like they're only 16 or 15 years old, and then because they're 18 in the body, they then need to go to an adult prison. Like, then you'll be sending somebody with a child's mind to an adult prison, and that's not a good thing to do. So that's another reason why we keep them around for longer if they don't reach their goals. Now, what do these children have access to while they're living with us in the juvenile detention here in Sweden? Well, almost everything, and sometimes more than they do have access to at home. We have not one, but actually 4 different schools, and they can go to each of those schools just like any other kid. The only difference being they get their own private teacher, and they rarely have classes together. They just have one-on-one school with their teacher. They have also access to basically a normal house. The apartments we have basically look like normal houses on the inside and outside. Except, like I said, reinforced windows, walls and doors. The employees that work around, like me, we are the only ones that can open those windows and doors. Otherwise, it just looks like a house with a living room, a kitchen, a bedroom and a bathroom. And this house just has a bit bigger living room and more bedrooms than normal houses. We have 8 different departments at the prison I work at, and each department is for a certain type of kid. We have separated departments so the boys and the girls don't mix, and then they're departments where the kids first come in and they will be evaluated to see what they need to make steps forward in life. And then we have departments where they go out, like that is basically their last stage. They're doing really well and then they get to leave that department. Those are usually really good. Means they often also get to go shopping by themselves. We open the door, they get to leave, go to town, go shopping and come back at a time we all agree on. And then there are the two in the middle, which are basically departments where we help them make steps forward, where we actually do the work together with them to become the better person. And the difference between those 2 middle ones are basically age, how old they are. Now, we also have a tennis court, we have 2 football courts, we have a big gym, we have a gymnasium, we have saunas, there are opportunities for them to go swimming in a swimming hole in town. They can go for walks with us. Only the one in the last departments that are doing really well can sometimes go for walks by themselves. Mostly we go for walks with them. I mean, they can basically ask us for anything. We've been going go-karting with them. We've been going on climbing courses. Whatever you can think of, they can ask us for it. Now, if they get what they ask for, has to do with how good they are. If they are really aggressive, then they don't get to go go-karting, of course. If they are doing really well, then they get to go go-karting. This isn't a punishment or reward kind of thing. This is more a safety thing, of course. Now, what else do they have access to? They have access to their own rooms. And most of the rooms have their own toilets, their own showers, their own bathrooms. They have a television in their room and a bed, of course. And during Corona, some of them were actually really good. When they got sick, they told us, hey, I'm sick. I'm not gonna leave my room for a couple of days. And that was fine. We'll just give them their food, their dinner at the door, and then they stayed in the rooms. So if they feel like not leaving their room for a day, if they feel that they're in there with some other youth they don't get along with, they can stay in the room, and that's fine. But otherwise, during the daytimes, The entire department is open to them. They get to go to the living room, the computer rooms, and other stuff. So they have a lot of facilities to be around and keep them occupied. Now, of course, this creates the question, hey, if they are locked up criminals, why do they get access to all this cool stuff? Shouldn't they be punished? And that is not the attitude here in Sweden. Here in Sweden, it isn't punishment, it's reform. That is the big difference. So, some people that work at my place think they should get punished, but if our bosses discover that that's what you think, they won't like you very much. We are there to help them. We are there to help society by making them into better people before they leave us. You can't make them into better people by punishing them all the time. If you take a bad person, lock them up for a year, and then release them, they won't be a better person. We take a bad person, lock them up, help them take steps forward, and this includes having as normal of a life as possible. Because if you don't get to share a television with other people, how are you supposed to know when you leave us that you have to share a television later in life? When you watchers, you are looking at my video right now. The person next to you might not be interested in my video, so you have to take turns. Like first we watch what you want and then we watch what the next person wants. And that's normal behavior. If you don't get the opportunity to fight over a television remote, you will never learn that that's something you can solve in other ways. Now, what do I do? What do I do in a Swedish juvenile detention, a Swedish children's prison during the night? Well, first things first, I've been working there for 8 years. My first 4 years I've been working during the daytime, working with those children all the time and helping them rehabilitate and become better people. During the daytime, I work in a team with my colleagues. A team could consist of 2 people or 7 people. That depends on the department. Sometimes you work with just 2 people and you are working with 7 inmates. But in other departments, I've worked with 8 colleagues for just 4 inmates. It just depends on what kind of department you're working on and how intensive those children are. Now, I switched to working at nighttime, and during the night, it's very different. During the night, we are just there by ourselves. That means I have the responsibility over all the children that live in that department by myself. And of course during the night they're supposed to sleep. Now, then what am I doing over there? All the doors are locked. The children can't get to me during the night. They can leave their room, but they cannot leave the hallway that goes to everything else. So the children get to have contact with each other, but not with us. Now, my job there is basically, first of all, safety. I'm there for their safety. If there is ever a fire, I am there to help them out of the building. If they have a health problem, I'm there to help them. If they need their medicine, I'm there to give it to them. And if they are suicidal or are trying to hurt themselves or even starting a fight with each other during the night, I'm there to prevent those situations. Now, like I said, the doors are locked during the night, which means they cannot come to me, but they can come to each other. This doesn't mean they cannot contact me. They can, of course, come up the door, ring the bell, and then they can have a conversation with me. This sometimes means that some of them get scared, have panic attacks, or whatever happens during the night, and they will call on me, and I will then help them in whatever situation they are. Sometimes they ask for our help during panic attacks, and then I just talk to them through the door and try to comfort them until the situation is resolved. During the nights, we kind of work alone. Not 100% though. There is an extra person that goes from department to department whenever they are needed. This person is called the ytre, which kind of translates to the outside person. This person isn't tied up in one department, so what are they for? Let's say one of the children needs their medicine. I am not allowed to open the door that's separating me and this kid by myself. We always need to be 2 people before we open that door. And that's what this outside person is for. Whenever a kid needs something, then I call this person, they will come to me, and then together we open the door. This is for multiple reasons. Of course, this is for our safety. If a kid says they want their medicine, and then I open the door and start fighting with me, it's better to be 2. But this is also for the protection for the kid. That way we are always held responsible. If a kid wants something and I open the door, then there are situations that you can think of that I could do something to this kid. And to make sure that I never do something to this kid, that's why there's another colleague. To be the witness for what happens during those moments that the doors are opened. Talking about witnesses, there's also electronic witnesses. There are cameras, and the doors register what time they opened and how often they're opened and for how long they're opened. The cameras only, there is still privacy for these children. So they don't have cameras in their bedrooms, bathrooms. There aren't any cameras in the private areas. There are only cameras in the hallways and some of the living spaces. The cameras are basically located in places where there are interactions between us, the people that work there, and the children that live there. Not every night kids need something. Most nights they actually don't need anything. They're just sleeping. And then you would think I wouldn't have anything to do. That's not true. Those are my main reasons for being there. My secondary reasons for being there is stuff like every night we check if all the utrymningsvägar, if all the emergency exits are free and functional. We check if all the fire extinguishers are where they need to be. We check if all the security systems are working. And we talk before the daytime people go home. We talk with them about how the day was, both to get an idea of where the kids' mindset are at. If they had a good day, we're probably gonna have a good night. If they had a bad day, we might have a bad night too. But we also talk with the daytime people so that they have a chance to talk about what happened. If one of our colleagues had a fight with one of the kids, then it is beneficial for them to talk to somebody about it. They get to say their point of view, they get to say what happened for their mental health, so they feel better, they feel supported by their colleagues, and they just got to talk about it, which is also very nice. And that's another reason why we night shift people are there. Then in the mornings, when the new daytime shifts arrives and we stop working, we also tell the daytime shift what happened during the night. So they also have an idea of how the day might go. And then it's our turn to tell the daytime shift how we felt, how it went for us, so that we also get to feel mentally okay if we were in a fight or anything like that. Other tasks we have during the night are all kinds of documentation. Like I said, when we look at all the emergency exits and the fire extinguishers and fire alarms and all that kind of stuff, we document if all that stuff is okay or not. If anything is broken, we send out emails to the repairmen, and these repairmen will then see that email in the morning and know what to fix. And we also do some cleaning. Every night we do cleaning, we swap the floors, we clean the toilets, we make breakfast. We just make sure that the department continues to be up and running during the nighttime, because the daytime shift might not have time for that. As you understand, when you're working with aggressive criminals, you don't always get the time during the day to clean. So we at the nighttime do that. Why don't we hire our cleaners? Well, because of secrecy. Lots of these inmates have hidden identities because they might be searched after by other criminals. They might have family that wants to break them out, or they might have a criminal family that wants to hurt them, sadly. So we can't just hire a cleaning company to come in and clean everything. We have to do that because we signed a secrecy document where we agree that we can't talk about certain things. Now, those are most of my most common tasks, but it's a very fluid work environment. Stuff happens all the time. After 8 years, I still see new things, and you never know what you're gonna be doing that night. I've been escorting kids to the hospital, I've escorted kids to the police station, and we sometimes unexpectedly get kids that have been taken by the police and just come in the middle of the night. Lots of weird things can happen, and there's always surprises. And we, even during the night, always have to be prepared for all this. And one of the biggest, most important tasks that we have during the nighttime is documentation about those kids. Every kid has their own file, and we need to document what happened during their night. It's kind of like a diary from our perspective. And why do we do this? Well, we have to write down everything on paper, or in this case digitally, because we know how far they are in meeting their goals. If a kid, for instance, has a goal set where they need to sleep during the night and be awake during the day, then me documenting that they have been in their bed all night shows everybody else that they are doing good towards their goal. If a kid during the night hurts themselves, tries to cut their wrists, or does anything else dumb, and I document that, then everybody that reads that knows, hey, they still have some goals to work towards. Now that brings up the little bit more sad side of my work. Yes, we have kids living there that want to hurt themselves. And yes, we have kids there that want to hurt each other. And not only hurt, sometimes also kill. We have had kids that want to kill themselves, kill other kids, or kill us. They are criminals. I'm sorry, but they are. They might be young, but they're still criminals. Luckily, in my 8 years of working there, I have never seen anybody get killed. And 10 years before I worked there, nobody was killed either. So the prison I work at, in the last 18 years, nobody has been killed, which is very, very good. But people do get hurt. I've myself been in the hospital 3 or 4 times, and a number of my colleagues has also gone to the hospital, and a number of those children has gone to the hospital. And as part of our job, we need to do our best to prevent people getting hurt. Doesn't matter if it's us or them, nobody should get hurt. And yeah, that's just the reality of working at such a place. People will get hurt, even though we do our best that they don't hurt themselves or other people. It's not easy. Even people will always find a way to hurt themselves, is one of the things you learn. Like, you can take away all the things they have in their room, you can lock them in that room, take away all the furniture, and I've seen them being able to hurt themselves anyway. But we have ways to deal with that. I've never seen one of the kids be hurt as much that they couldn't heal. They've always been able to heal. None have been able to take their own lives. And I think that's a success. Every day I go home and nobody got hurt and everybody is still alive, I count that day as a success. No matter how bad the day was. And up to this point, I've had almost 8 years of successful days. All that sounds very negative and scary, but moments like that don't happen very often. It's not that often where we get kids that actually want to kill themselves or somebody else. Those only happen every once so often. Most of the time we are just there with kids that are misguided, do drugs, steal stuff, or are more aggressive than the normal teenager. And, they're normal people. They just had the misfortune of growing up in a bad neighborhood, being born to bad parents, or being born with a threat loose in their brain and not having the people around to guide them. So I like working there. It's a good place to work at. Oh yeah, finally inside again. That's nice. Oh, it's quite a lot of snow. Anyway, so what are the numbers? Sweden has one of the best reform rates out there. What is a reform rate? Like misoffending rates you can talk about. Like how big of a percentage of the people that lived in prison come back to prison later. Sweden is one of the best in the world with that. The percentage is the lowest, but still below 60%, which means that around 40%, a little bit more than 40%, will come back to prison, sadly. And this is the best in the world. In other countries, it's like over 80% of the people that has gone to prison will come back to prison later. But we can be proud that our system is working and that we are the best in the world with a little bit more than 50% that doesn't come to prison. So that's good and that's nice. And when you're working there, you get to see that sometimes. You get to see like 3 categories of kids. The worst category is the kid where you see, like, yeah, you're going to be in prison for the rest of your life, no matter what you do, because there's just something wrong with you, or they don't want to try, or they don't have the capacity to become much better. Then there is the category of kids that, like, you're a bad person right now, but if you really try, you get to be a good person. And then the last category, which is like, these kids are already good people and they just made a mistake. They know they made a mistake and they're actively working to meet their goals and get back into society. So those last 2 are always nice to see. And it's extra nice to see when you see one of those inmates leaving, they did their work and they're going to have a good life. But yeah, that's my work. That's what I do. It's interesting. If you have any questions about it, please don't be afraid to ask. Write in the comments. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And I'm thinking about doing a live stream at some point. I have tested doing a live stream before, and I'll try and see if I can put a message out there and plan one so that you all get to see in time when I'm gonna go live and join the live stream. But when this is gonna happen, I don't know yet, and how I'm gonna get a message to you guys, I'll have to figure out. But yeah, so stay tuned and subscribe to see that live stream at some point. And apart from that, thank you so much for watching, or listening in this case, because I gave you permission not to watch. So, hope you found this interesting, and see you all next time. Bye.